Okay. Um, so let's go through. We've got 9 different best practices that, uh, based on our experience working with Ground Force with candidates, um, these are things that we definitely would recommend to campaigns if as they're thinking about developing their campaign site. And again, if you've already launched your campaign site, you've still got lots of time before the October 16th election here in Alberta to make tweaks. And so hopefully this review might give you some ideas. So for those of you that again, if you're approaching developing a site for the first time, it is, the question will come up, where to spend your time, where is it worth spending your time, and importantly, your money, which are both limited resources on any municipal campaign. So um, certainly spending time and making sure that your visual identity, so how you're representing yourself with your logo, your word mark, logo or word mark, and difference being a word mark might just be text laid out and of your name or your campaign slogan, whereas a logo might have some other graphic elements in it. But whether it's a word mark or your logo, having a professional visual identity can really help to communicate who you are and what you stand for. Everything from the font you choose, whether it's modern or not, your color palette, so again, those give visual cues about your where you're positioning yourself in terms of political, on the spectrum of, from left to right, or whether you're associating yourself with a particular mayoral candidate or whatnot. So it is, really important to think through your colors, and as I said, fonts, and then any graphic elements. So if we come back here to the screenshots, you can get a sense, of where, even just first one that we're on, where on the political spectrum this councillor might lie. Um, and then again, we just looked at Mayor Nenchi's site, and his choice of purple is quite distinct from any other political affiliation, right? Again, you can get a sense of, in this case, Rick chose to have a graphic element in his visual identity, and with this the suggestion box, and so what that says to me, he's all about having conversations in the communities. He hopefully, if that's his logo, he's going to be doing lots of town halls, and he might want to have like he's got want to hear from you right down to the bottom. So it's interesting. I mean, it does communicate something about the kind of candidate he wants to be. Whereas Mayor Nenshi, you can see if we go back, he doesn't have a separate graphic element. His name and last name is so recognizable as well that actually you just want to focus on Nenshi in this case, right? So I think he's done a really it's you don't want to distract from that strong identity there. And so again, it can't hurt to you know um, scroll through, and there's no right answer here. It comes back down to budget. A really simple word mark, even like, see, we were looking at Rob Dickinson, or something more sophisticated, or not just sophisticated, but with a graphic element or whatnot. There's no right answer. It really is what's going to convey the type of candidate you are and help people very quickly, to recognize you and then remember you when they, when they see your campaign signs or your literature or your website. Okay, so with that said, I do think it's worth campaign's time to spend time thinking through, ideally with a professional, um, those elements, what you're looking to convey, and then having a word mark that is or a logo that is you know is really sharp, simple, and conveys the key messages of who you are, what your campaign stands for. So that doesn't necessarily, if you know somebody who has worked in graphic design, or you've got a friend that has gone to an art school or whatnot, you can sit down with them, get their input, and then there are certainly lots of providers on the web that can help you with a logo, or locally in your city, and you might want to ask around, ask for contacts, and get a few different quotes. Certainly sort of in the ballpark of what I've seen campaigns spend, and this is one of the packages that Ground Force offers with in partnership with a design studio called Studio JWall. In the $500 to $1,500 range is sort of what I see municipal campaigns spending. Now that those numbers that I'm quoting are mostly in Ontario. In Alberta, the budgets on campaigns, the spending limit can be a bit higher, but still most campaigns raise around what is raised in Ontario. So I would think that the same numbers would hold generally in that range of sort of 500 to 1,500. I do suggest it's worth, unless you are yourself or you have a professional graphic designer on your team, that's money well spent. When you're looking to convey your identity on social media, whether it's your Facebook page or Twitter account or whatnot, your literature. People are so swamped with information these days that it's even more important that your graphic elements, your identity, catches people's eye, and as I said, connects your web properties to your printed materials, to your signs, to what you're handing out at your all candidates meetings or at the door. Okay, so that is, I would say, money well spent. And when you're getting started and thinking about your website design and development, it's one of the first things you're going to want to think about is your visual identity, as that will be critical for your website, either designer or and developer to use. Okay, so that's visual identity. High quality photographs, I can't stress that enough. Again, for all the reasons that the visual identity is important, one of the core components of your visual identity are the photographs that you're using in your site. And the nice thing about photographs now is you can get high quality photographs from many, whether it's even a mobile device. In many cases, you can do wonders with that. With even the camera on your phone. But if you have a friend that has a higher quality camera as well that can attend some events, all the better, and definitely would recommend it. And in some cases, certainly it's worth spending some money on high quality photographs as well at some of your events. Again, I want to come back to here the Nenshi campaign site, because I think they do a fantastic job, and clearly they've had some experience at this. But let's just talk about what makes a good photo. So this photo is very inviting. It has all sorts of good things happening here. So this was taken at a 2017 campaign launch event, and you can see just the diversity that's represented. This really looks like next generation here in Calgary, and you've clearly got the energy of this photo is just very compelling. So coming back to the mayor's brand, and again, his brand being about about moving Calgary forward, about connecting people across the city, about city building, about certainly He's about all, his brand is about all Calgarians. He's the mayor for everybody across the city. Again, these are things that he stands for, that are represented throughout all his literature. And again, just coming back to this photo, it really communicates that without a whole bunch of words. So as we said, if you're trying to like draw people in, having that photo, and this is why I call it a hero image, or hero banner photo. This is, I would say almost as well, probably as important on your website as your bio, let's say, right? So you can think about sort of the same amount of time you might put into thinking about what your website bio would say. I would say, it's worth putting, if not as much time, probably by the time you actually get the photo taken, it ends up being about as much time. And certainly some of the mistakes I think some candidates make is that you think that having a high resolution and professional photograph is the goal, instead of thinking about how does your photograph, your hero image, communicate your core messages of your campaign. Okay, so any day of the week, I would prefer to see a photo that maybe isn't professionally staged, but is communicating the messages of the campaign immediately on visiting the site. And so what do I mean by that? You could, the typical candidate standing alone, who's clearly, you've engaged a professional photographer, or standing in front of a house or something like that. But what does that say, a campaign standing alone? What does it communicate? Or, you'll see campaign shots with sort of a cutout where it's been a photo in front of a green screen or blue screen or whatnot, and it's cut out around the candidate, and it's just it's silhouette, it's just their body, say. And again, it's fine. It definitely works in some cases. I'm not saying that you never would want to do that. However, in most cases, having on a campaign, having the candidate surrounded by people and community, and having that be a diverse shot is what you might want to go for. And taking a photo at an event early on is a great idea. And so bringing lots of people together, make sure it's it's real supporters, and even better if it's sort of in context, where in this case this was a launch event for the campaign, a volunteer event, right? So so again, these people came together for a particular purpose, not just the photo. But a purpose or an action related to the campaign. Okay, so that's lots on photographs. We could take a look through. Again, this site does a good job of using good photos throughout the site in the header portion. In this case, even in this page, the get updates, all it is a photo background with a sign up form, right? So that's pretty interesting. Okay, so let's talk about layout, site layout, and this is where we can refer back to some of the findings here, because I think what we're going to see is that this tells us something in terms of the top menu items and the engagement forms and features. And what it tells us is, and I think what I would say is a best practice is implementing standard features well, and then starting with the basics and building out features if you have the traffic and capacity on your team. Okay, so if you're a municipal campaign, especially a local, so let's talk about councillor and school board trustee campaigns. Mayoral campaigns have some more resources likely, and so they can probably afford to have spend a bit more on their website design and development. But if you're a counselor or a trustee campaign, you're working with a tight budget, and so what you just need to be to make that go as far as possible. And for a campaign website, certainly less is often more. And so again, I've seen where I see some pitfalls on campaigns is thinking that it's trying to reinvent the wheel, or to add a bell or a whistle, like for example sort of idea crowdsourcing feature, or and that's or policy feedback tool or something. And so I'm not saying that, as I said, in that would never be a good idea to do. However, I would very rarely suggest that out of the gate that you launch with something like an ideation tool or whatnot, because from my experience, most most visitors to a candidate website, they're looking for, the basics. And if we come back here to what's listed, I think it's no uh, coincidence that that the key pages are a bio and about, volunteer, your issues, donate, and contact. At the end of the day, that's what, if you look at analytics for a site as well, those are going to be your highest traffic sites, in particular your about and your issues, and those, being the primary things visitors are looking for. So you want to make sure it's really easy to find your bio and then your issues. And then once the visitor has seen your bio or read about you, then you want to make it very easy to sign up, right? So if we come back to site here, right, you can either sign up, you can read a bit about the candidate, and even better if there's a sign up form right there ready to go, so you don't have to click again. This just took basically one click after the home page, and everything I need, if I like what it says here, is ready to go. You could put that sign up in the footer or in the header if you want as well, or over the banner, but that's again, a typical visitor to a site, they're just looking for some quick information. If you're finding that your campaign has and you want to have Google Analytics hooked up to for your site, right? You want to be looking at the traffic, where people are clicking and whatnot. And if you're finding that that you've got quite a bit of traffic, you've got hundreds of visitors coming to your site, and in that case, you might want to try out another type of a type of form. In this case, you can see here the engagement form, policy ideation. There's just one or two campaigns here using a policy crowdsourcing tool. So for example, if you use Nation Builder, there is the option, and we can take a look at a nation here. We can take a look here at the back end of a Nation Builder account and look at the new page. And so when I'm talking about making choices about which tools to use, you might have, for example, this suggestion box, right? So that when I'm talking about policy crowdsourcing or idea crowdsourcing tool, that's the kind of tool we're talking about, a suggestion box, or it could be an endorsement tool, right? And so what I'm suggesting in terms of best practices is that spending a whole bunch of time worrying about these tools, I would recommend against, especially getting out of the gate. Much better to spend time actually communicating who you are through your visual identity and your photographs. Get your site live and then see what the traffic is like. And if it warrants it down the road, then you can think about adding some more bells and whistles. Even in this case, you can see here a lot of campaigns have not even launched a lawn sign form. Again, similar to the event calendar, that may likely be because it's we're still a ways away from the writ period and E-Day on October 16th. And so campaigns may decide to launch that down the road, which certainly can make sense, especially as you can see here on the mayor's site, where it's all about find out who I am and volunteer, right? Or sign up. So that's really all they're asking us to do, in addition to, of course, donate. So, keeping it simple early on, keeping it focused is not a bad idea at all, and certainly is what we're seeing with the sites here in Alberta. So let's go back here. So simple language and content. That's along the same lines, right? So just making sure that it's web friendly, accessible language, and then the content again has good graphics, not too text heavy. And if you are needing to write more, make sure that the font size and that it's legible on the site. So that's a first grouping. We've got another several best practices to go through, but why don't I pause for a moment to see if you have any questions. Feel free to unmute. Okay, so let's talk about the remaining best practices here. So I highly recommend using engagement forms. So engagement forms on the website, again, as we saw here, you want to use engagement forms. You don't need to use a ton of engagement forms. Having a few key calls to action on your site that use forms is critical. And using forms is connected with the sixth best practice is not just to use forms, but actually connect the forms to a CRM. Now, CRM is a contact relationship management tool, or you can probably heard of it as a campaign database, right? So your campaign database, having that directly connected to your website is going to save time and make it much more usable, your contact database as well as your website. So in particular on a website, what we're talking about here, use of engagement forms. Again, we'll come back to the example we're using here, where we've got these fields, and in this case, you can see right down in the footer, or you could have seen that in our spreadsheet up review, that the mayor is using Nation Builder. Okay, so in this case, the site is connected directly to the CRM. However, and this is one of the reasons we're focused and we've reviewed Nation Builder, and WordPress requires an extra step. So WordPress, you would have to integrate it with a contact management system, and certainly is doable, but is added a step and adds a layer of complexity for campaigns. You may not think of it as a CRM, but it certainly is. MailChimp, if you've heard of MailChimp, or some of the other email platforms, whether it's Constant Contact or others, but MailChimp is one I'd highly recommend. That could do quite fine for municipal campaign. If you wanted to use WordPress, connect it directly to MailChimp, that would be a really solid setup as well. As a step, if you've already set up your WordPress site and you're not using MailChimp, at a minimum, you could do something like embed a form, whether it's a form like 123 contact forms, or you could use a Google form, even better with a Google form. That's certainly a way to set up to use a contact form on your site. However, in that case, a spreadsheet, I wouldn't consider a contact management system. It's certainly, you can manage contacts in it, but it's not a contact database. But it's better than nothing. So again, using engagement forms and connecting the engagement forms to a CRM. And the reason for that is that on a municipal campaign, again, your time is really limited, and so and as well, your technical resources are limited as well. And so while it may seem straightforward, if you're gathering information in say a spreadsheet, it may seem straightforward to be importing that into your CRM. In practice, most campaigns, to do that regularly, it end up being higher priorities. When your town halls start and your all candidates meetings, your events and whatnot, you start having to put up signs. There's going to be all sorts of draws in your time, and certainly one of the first things that always falls off is remembering that on a weekly basis we're going to be importing our sign up form data into our contact database. So I highly recommend before it gets too busy on your campaign, campaign, if you haven't done it already, figure out how your website data that you're collecting goes into your contact management system. And as I said, there's no one system that you would need to use. However, if we look at the results of what folks are using, certainly Nation Builder's up there, and then as a close second would be WordPress, again probably with a system, whether it's a MailChimp or a Google Forms or whatnot, integrated in order to collect information. So I can answer questions that you've got on that after we finish this round of best practices. And so let's get into, we're going to get into now some of the back-end features of your site. And so this is assuming that you're using a contact database of some sort or contact management system. So this next point, writing customized and useful auto responses with a clear call to action. Okay, so in this case, we need to use an example contact management system. So we're going to use Nation Builder as the example. However, the same principle applies if you're using another system like MailChimp, or any other auto response or form, whether it's say 123 contact forms or others. You're going to be able to customize an auto response message that goes to the user when they submit their form, and that is one of the reasons you want to use a form, right? So it could just be as easy like for you to put your contact information to list an email, list your phone number. But the problem is that while it maybe it provides the user the information they need, you don't capture that data, right? So you don't, first of all, you don't get the benefit of having first name, last name, email, phone number in your database, which is absolutely critical for your campaign. But also, what the next thing you don't get to do is you don't get to send them an additional call to action. So if you're familiar with any type of sales or relationship management, what you want to do is move people along a ladder of engagement. So you want to move them from having visited your site and knowing about you to, say, signing up and showing their support or looking for more information. And then the auto response message gives you an automated way to actually introduce them to a next step on your ladder of engagement. Okay, so again, I see a lot of campaigns that don't spend a lot of time on their auto response messages, and I think that it's definitely is an area where a lot of campaigns could improve, and it's definitely worth the time. So I'm going to show you a campaign that is running right now, and it's not a candidate campaign, but it's using similar systems, and it's one that Ground Force is running here in Calgary. And so Creative Calgary has one core action that it's asking folks to pledge, and you can see this is just launched earlier this week, this page, or last week I should say, before the folk festival locally, and so there are about 300 people that have signed up. And so what we want to look at here is similar to a candidate campaign. I'm already logged in here, so that's why the name and email fields, but it would be exactly the same sort of information that would actually be on, say, the volunteer form of a candidate site, which is what we've got here. So similar information we're collecting. But if we go to the back end of the system, this is what I want to look at here. So we've got few things I want to review. We're going to take a look at the auto responses, and we're also going to take a look at some of the search engine optimization and social sharing information. Okay, so first of all, the auto response message. So you can see here in Nation Builder, if you're using it, or as I said, in any other tool that you've got a form, usually you've got an option to have an auto response message. And all this does is allows you to give people the next steps, right? So This is coming automatically when you complete the pledge. You get a message that thanks you for supporting the campaign. You know, states our core message again, and gives people the option not only just to contact us, but actually to sign up for their 30-minute in-person orientation at the campaign office. Okay, so that's like a very specific task, and you can even see here, and you know, you may want to look at a tool like Calendly. You know, it's a neat scheduling tool, and I'll just pull this up so that you can see what what a candidate sees here. Let me just get the right link. Or you can see what a user sees. So this, they click on that and they get right to a page where they can schedule their orientation shift, and so they can choose a date and they can just choose a time to come into the campaign office, and this will integrate with their calendar directly, right? So we wanted to make it really easy for people to schedule an in-person orientation on this campaign. And it's not that different for a municipal campaign. You may want to do sort of you know, you certainly might want to do more group orientations, right? But again, you can use a tool like Calendly. It's free, right? And it makes it really seamless for a user to get involved. Okay, so that's you know, just an idea. You know, certainly signing up for a shift, coming to an event. You might want to link to your event calendar, volunteering, link to a volunteer page on your site. Then there's and then donating. In this case, we've got a donation ask as well in here. So it's well worth spending a bit of time on your auto response message, and if you've got any questions about that, as I said, happy to take them. So that's the auto response message, and each of your forms should have a customized auto response message and a different message. So for example, if we're on an email sign up form, you might, again, where you are at in your ladder of engagement, that's maybe the beginning of their engagement. They've come to your site, they've signed up for updates, so you probably don't want to ask them for a donation right away. You might want to ask them to come to an event or to you know, consider volunteering. And then if they take those actions, then perhaps you're going to be asking them to donate. So each of your forms are going to have a separate message. And your lawn sign form, that's a really interesting one, and it's unique to a municipal campaign or political or some advocacy campaigns. But you, in this case, would want to provide some instructions, right? Because not everybody understands when lawn signs are delivered, and there are laws about when you can put up lawn signs. So you might want to, in your auto response message, just lay out what they can expect, you know, when you're going to come to put up the sign, approximately what number they can call if they've got questions about the lawn sign and whatnot, because often, you know, if they feel like that you don't want to leave them with the wrong impression that your campaign hasn't put up the lawn sign if they're waiting for weeks or months for it, when in fact you're not actually allowed to put it up until closer to E-Day. So you might want to actually articulate those kind of details in your auto response form. Okay, so let's take a look at, again, including social sharing features and meta information. So similar to your auto response, this just is all about making it really easy for people to share your campaign message. So we can see here, we have your social sharing options. Clicked on Twitter here, you can see we've populated the information with the hashtags, and importantly here we've included at Creative YYC, which is in this case the campaign's Twitter handle, right? So this is going to it's going to add this message to those conversations on Twitter as well, because we've included the Creative YYC handle. If somebody tweets this message, then in Nation Builder, because of the social integration, that message will be logged in the under the correct, in the database, in the contact management system. So including your Twitter handle, if you've connected that to Nation Builder, allows that to be tracked. And I'll just pause for a moment and just note, you know, we are 3 webinars in this series. So if there are some features of Nation Builder that are confusing, or if you feel it's going too quick with Nation Builder, we did a whole series or a whole webinar on Nation Builder for municipal campaigns in our last, and we will be posting that to the Democracy Kit Choose Technology page, as I said, this week. So you'll be able to go back and review that. We're coming up on the end of the time, so I'm not going to spend much more time on the social sharing. All I'll say here is that under your meta information for a campaign page, so we're talking about here the photo that shows up, if you're going to share on Twitter, and in this case you can see you've got I wanted to show that that there was a form and there's a bit of information. So I didn't just put our logo, put a screenshot of the page because it's an interesting layout, and thought that that would be more interesting than just the logo. So again, there's no right answer, but try different things. It can't hurt to put an image that tries to draw people in when people share it on Facebook or Twitter, share your page. As well, in terms of the meta information for the page, you can see this is where we populated the tweet text, and then in Nation Builder, the excerpt or the preview text that shows up in a post doubles as the search engine optimization text, so the SEO text on your site. So filling this out and making sure it is using keywords that relate to your campaign, that'll help with your search results. And there's all sorts of good tools. If you Google any of these words like SEO or social sharing or whatnot, there's all sorts of best practice websites on the web to help you out with that.